generation. Now, while she was talking, I had this sudden yearning to read. Remember, I left my copy in the hotel, so I'll probably find it in my phone and read a bit sort of towards the tail end. Is that the timing? 000? The last 6:49. Okay. Now, I'm back in passive-aggressive Canada. I've had some interesting experiences here. All of them have been aggressively non-violent. Many things end in question marks. And it's sometimes a little bit hard to understand for a Kenyan. I guess, like, if I'd say first, one of the things about discovering a truer eye, I'm not sure that the word is a more authentic eye, but certainly now these times in discovering a truer eye, to see is to also slightly try and unpack for myself like what I'm seeing or what I'm assuming I'm seeing. Just to say, you know, like everyone, you're sitting in a small country there called Kenya, except the Nigerians and the Ethiopians. We have a small country there called Kenya, and then you're speaking English, and inside that small country, you're consuming everything, right? So you feel very confident that you know Canada, which you kind of do because Canada arrives at you via America, via media, via many things. I knew quite comprehensively in Form 5 that, and I'm sure there are several Africans or others who are familiar with this narrative. It's like, America is a bit wild, United States, very wild. Like, you can't even say, I want to do medicine. There are many things, and they're just wild, and they chew gum. And because they chew gum and they're wild, to go and study there is very chaotic, disorganized, and it's not good quality, because any good colonized or formerly colonized African knows English education is the best. And because English education is the best, they study pure subjects there. But now, sitting in America, you can study hip-hop. There are these very confusing things that you can study there in America. But Canada, you can do MBA and LLB together. So Canada is better than America. And it's not quite Britain, but it's there in between. So they chew gum, but they do LLB. And you can do joint LLB and MBA, which is good for future. Now, and so my encounters, many times we did a play here some years back, a trilogy, and it's called an Africa trilogy. It was a very interesting idea, a great idea, but still an interesting and very Canadian idea. So the idea was, there's this guy who's Canadian, very famous among you, but I can't remember his name very well, but he's the uncle or the brother-in-law or something of that No Logo, the woman who did No Logo. I think so. But he did this speech, and then something about the speech happened, but something inside that speech, which is about Africa, Rwanda had been saved by Canada. So this theater director of a house called Volcano decided that because somehow Canada saved Africa in Rwanda, or saved Rwanda in Rwanda, something of this narrative, Canada could do this trilogy of plays where you have an African playwright, a European playwright, and a North American playwright, directed by people from 3 continents to do a trilogy. Great idea. Yeah. Canadian money. And I've never written a play. at least since high school, and so he'll force me to write a play. And sometimes the books don't sell, maybe plays will sell. So, this was the sort of rationale. So we were here a lot rehearsing. I must explain to you that the practice of theatre in Canada is extremely thorough. Canada is a very thorough country. Everything was very thorough. Each time people rehearse, you had to pay union rates and not union rates. Many diversities were taken care of in the arrangements, or many kinds of diversities. I saw many diversities. All which look sort of the same. And so it always felt like everybody had agreed, and everybody was in full agreement with everybody, and the disagreements were extremely polite. We went to a concert because some person of origins in Africa, somewhere in the Horn, and there was this very cool organization that supported theatre and different people in the Horn, had this party, very cool artistic party, like they pay artists here. Like artists are paid money. They have studios paid by the government. Yes. And so we went to this party, and this guy who looked very cool was singing a song called Sirens, 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 and he was really talking about the sirens of the police who brutalized the black people. But now I was a bit confused because I was like, I do understand that there are many race issues in Canada, slavery. This is not a question. But it was confusing coming from America because I was like here? Not like here, like sirens, not quite the same. Because the guy was borrowing a certain US American sort of Detroit, like gangland thing, and he looked like a good middle class immigrant from the on. So I was trying to like digest that thing and I couldn't digest it. Then I thought also Canada is big and it's white, and not race-wise, it's just there's a lot of snow up to the north. And so you can bring any kind of rage here. And you just look at more snow and more snow up to the end of like the world, and you scream in the snow, and then what's going to happen? This guy told me, a Somali guy, so I met those early days when I was queer, you go online, so I was like looking for a black queer person to meet and hang out with. This is in Norway. And so we meet in this bar, and these two Somali guys reach out. And there's like, I'm Norwegian, Somali, Norwegian, Somali, Norwegian. So we are talking. So I was like, so yeah, how's the experience? It's like, well, okay, it goes like this here in Oslo. If you're black and you're going to a gay bar, you'll be swarmed like bees. But you might have to deal with a lot of shit that you don't want. So like what? I'm not those guys who usually swarm like bees. Honey pot? So I'm like really excited. He's like, you don't understand. Of course, over the few days I came to understand because in Norway it's like a construction, right? An extremely blonde girl, with an extremely dark guy with dreadlocks of a very specific kind. It's like a decision. I don't even know how to explain it, but you see it once and then you're like, interesting. You see it the second time, you see it the 7,744th time, and you know it's a construction. In fact, Norway has a very specific relationship with Ghana in a sexual way, which involves many transportations of ideas and people. And with Kenya, there's a cyber cafe in my hometown which specializes in Norwegian men. And I met 3 Kenyan women married to older Norwegian men. They took me to a party in the house, and then 3 Norwegian men were in their kitchen, silent, while the rest of us were making noise, because you don't make noise in Norway. They freak out. So they came for the dinner, and they were quiet. And then the Kenyans had invited the Ugandan friends, and we were all wearing clean glasses. And then after dinner, the men went to wash the dishes, and the girls broke out the liquor and we started getting drunk. So I'm like, so what's the deal? So I'm like, the deal is this. So ask guy as we are now, we are just hustling chicks. We are middle class kids from Kenya. Things went rough. So, my friends, this one friend says, I know a friend, I know this cyber, and then this cyber you can meet Norwegian men. So most of these Norwegian men are divorced. They are older, and in Norway, it's more than, there is more snow, or more idea of snow in Norway than Canada. Like, Norway is the original snow place. People go mad in winter. There's just darkness. The painting, the screen came from Norway, right? So, these are sad divorced men, older. And these days you do prenup. It's not like the old days when you just came for beach safari in Kenya and ended up with somebody. Now, the young women have a degree from Nairobi University. She's done this part-time job here, part-time job there, part-time job there. And then you meet this guy in a cyber, and you have a very structured arrangement. Like one was telling me, let's call her Naomi. Naomi was like, no, for me, in the prenup, he was like, when I've done my master's, when I finish my master's and everything else, then we choose how to do. So once you got your papers, you're fine. So people have made these calculations. So these years have happened. People have made their bargains with coming here. The immigrants have made their bargains with coming here. But now there's this other thing that's happening. Now, I'm keen to talk about that. That's kind of what I want to talk about today. It's that somewhere in the process of people escaping strife, many people escape the border. At least people doing crossing the Sahara to go into Europe. Because for us, you keep seeing those boats and then they sink and then, what's the deal? And in her paper, she was talking about the idea that, in fact, no one is really interested because Senegalese, Italy is a prime target, right? The stage, not France, right? Italy is a prime target. And the idea was first, her contention was that the urge to emigrate, to move, to adventure, and this particular, she's talking about young men, right? Is like the urge to eat. So you have restless young men who need to have an agenda. Whether that agenda is to be married, to be properly a man, to get the respect of your parents, there are all these sorts of, more traditional things, to support your family and so on and so forth. But there's also the idea of to adventure, because then I go spend some time in Senegal and find something out. I needed a translator, so I had this guy translate stuff for me and paid me $300. But yeah, it was a nice National Geographic gig, it had cash. And then when I paid him his last money, he disappeared. And so his big sister where he was living, kept calling me. And we are very confused because it seems clear to everybody that the guy has run away to Mali to now go there and do that Sahara business, which is expensive, but you need several $1,000s anyway to pay your way, hire those people who guide you across the Sahara secretly, then to I don't know which town in Morocco, and then it's really expensive. It's expensive and slightly irrational because there are guys from Congo who come with that $6,000, right? Some guys in Congo go to Angola. From Angola, they get a ship to Brazil, right? And then from Brazil, they ship it back to Europe. When you're like, with $6,000, why don't you set up a little shop? I mean, why do you set up a little shop? If you have $6,000, even here now, if you're giving me $6,000 and go make it, feel free, go and do what you get, cash, right? So no, but what this guy does, he takes $300, must have saved some more money. Now, was his condition of living bad? Actually, it wasn't. He was staying in a little beach village called Bour. In terms of touristic things, very pretty. Like the French just love it. It's where the French go get African sex. It's like known as a sleazy sex town, as well as a beautiful beach, but it's notoriously for sex also. So the best looking men, if people want to go and read it, you want to go to good looking men on a beach, Bour in the world, probably number one. He's a good-looking guy. He's not doing anything. He was really properly hired. So he is staying with his. He has a chicken operation. He sells chicken to hotels. He's staying with his sister, who's married, she's bigger than him. His parents are retired somewhere. They're not rich, no. Well, they probably had a small government job, clerk. I don't know what his parents did. Then they're retired, they're sorted. But he's the only boy and he's jobless. And it's not that he really necessarily wants a job. It's just that, like many African countries at the time and even now, things are just kind of. Wetting paint dry. And so he gets some white girls, he gets some black girls, just good fun. There are clubs, clubbing is there. And then he has his chickens, he sells the chickens to hotels, he makes some cash. Off season, on season, he makes some cash. So I'm like, isn't this a good living? Why? Because these are supposed to be African expectations, because Africa is supposed to be like happy. But the guy is not happy because he fucked off and his sister looked for him. I'm now the person responsible because now, people in Senegal are very extended family. They take this in seriously. They're like, our son was in your hands and he has gone off somewhere. And what diabolical plot do you have for this guy? So 3 weeks in, the guy sends me an email from Bamako. And he's like, I'm on my way to France or Italy. And I'm like, hey man, you're all this trouble with your family. Long and short, by the way, it's a funny thing. The guy ended up in Belgium. How? I don't even want to know. I'm not asked, but I got an email from him. He ended up in Belgium, and now the story in Senegal goes, he's having an affair with a member of the royal family of Belgium. How? So in that part, I don't know how much it's a true story, but apparently. So, now, you start to have these people swelling out of space to kind of adventure. And me now, as a writer and as a person, this is the zone at which I'm now, the last few years, been really kind of interested in. How just suddenly space and time just stood up and said, we're going. This might be what people call Africanizing. Me, I don't know if Africanizing, that one may belong to the economists and everything else, but me, I just call it, people just said, I'm going. And that I'm going now is, how many people are there in Canada? How many people are there? 33 million. That's just Lagos State. Right? Now, there are like 1 billion people in this territory where they speak 3,000 languages, where, now it's just like, Toronto is the most diverse city. When I go to work, I just see like a color code pamphlet where everyone agrees. Because in a certain sense, there's a platform that runs this country, as you guys know. There's a platform that runs this country, and that platform is not to be questioned. You know that. And that platform, then it says the diversity. So it's like, here is the platform, and then there's the platform is like 12 miles of snow. White snow. And then there on top, there's little diversity. There's this thing that's supposed to be now, come with your color code, when you swallow up to your neck here. These other plates, they perform your diversity. Now, in a certain sense, now, there in that Lagos, there are people who are like, my children are only going to go to madrasa, and we are waiting for Islamic State. My version. In that Lagos there's someone who's like, Jesus came last week. In fact, to be quite honest, I went, there's a thing called the most beautiful, who was ever done, do you know the Shwenka play the road? Anyone? Anyway, there's a highway, it's the most incredible thing anywhere, from Lagos to Ibadan. Just to put it in context, Ibadan was one of the largest cities in the world in 1800. In 1800, and it's still there. And now, who is Nigerian? What's the population of Ibadan now? Roughly.
Nigerian diaspora, so we don't know.
1.5 million.
No. That's a small town in Nigeria now. I think it's at least 10 million. At least. And Greater Ibadan. Somewhere between 8 and 10. Now Lagos City, they say estimate 17. Lagos State, who knows? Right? So there's this highway. It's kind of highway of death, it's a giant highway. And on this highway are these mega churches. And so I went to see one because I'd read somebody 7 years ago that their new mortgages were being issued. Talking about Africa rising. Mortgages were being issued. The newspaper put it like for the first time in Nigeria's history, I'm sure it was not for the first time in Nigeria's history, but for the first time post Abacha, I guess, mortgages are being issued in this paradise city on Ibadan Highway called Redeemer's Camp. So me, I'm like, shit, it's juicy. We head off Redeemer's Camp. I just wish I could tell you, because the part of the message I'm trying to put here is that your necks, and especially the black necks here, if you don't turn and start to immerse yourself to what's going on there, you've missed the boat. It's just not good or bad, you just missed the boat. And so a certain kind of very tame, very safe, mediocre future awaits you with a lot of professional successes and climbing up the ladder of Canadian happiness. Me, I went there. I don't even call it Afrofuturism or whatever. It was fucking incredible. So, Redeemer's Camp, let me tell you what the story is. So this guy in like 1930 something, this first Pentecostal upheavals, right? Of course, remember this is Yoruba land, which is some other drama altogether. Of amazingness, right? Decides to start a church, a Christian church, of course. And a Pentecostal Christian church. And so this is the early Pentecostalism. And then it goes, it's very polite, and then of course, during this kind of IMF craziness, Nigeria just decides to explode into another kind of Pentecostalism, like amphetamines, cocaine of Pentecostal, yeah. There used to be books, my mom used to get these books, my mom was saved, and she used to get these books where Kenyans were flying, because Kenyans were the same as Kenyans were flying, now not to look for visa to UK, Kenyans were flying to Bible school in Lagos through the 80s. And they come up with these books where somebody would say that the whole of Lagos is run by a cadre of demons. Talk about Afrofuturism. Who live with computers underneath the island and manage all our fates. And while they're managing these fates, right, now as we are risen up to conquer, the guy now leading the church. And so he had a dream, and he told the people in his church, a snake came to him and told him to build a city. So he's like, okay. So they go and remove money. People say Africans don't look like they're waiting for Corona money. They remove money and buy land from the road until where the eye stops seeing, and you can run and you won't finish running, and they buy this land. And from this land, they first build sheds with metal sheds. This is tiny church. Within 10 years, that church has several million members. So on Sunday, coming in Lagos, there's a traffic jam of like 7 hours, and people are going to church, because that's not the only one. There are like 30 mega churches there. There's 1 month, I think it's Easter, where there are 7 million people who come to stay there for a week to worship. Now, an ordinary Sunday church serves 500,000 people. They bought 400 American old yellow school buses. They have a university, and then they have a middle-class suburb. The middle-class suburb, now if you've gone to Lagos, Lagos has changed now, it's very kind of getting up a mobile and what. But Lagos 10 years ago was crazy. But now here, it looks like a little American middle-class suburb with little signs for children, little roundabouts, gated community. We knocked in one house and they sat down there. Very cleanly, clean cut, shiny Christian faces. And they said, what are you doing? Oh, I'm studying medicine. I'm going to be a consultant in neuroscientist. All these people. Because these are people from Lagos who are like, there's hell in Lagos, we're going to come here and build. And that's where now we're issuing mortgages. There's a new bank. Now the narrative of snakes now is over. Because now there's a bookshop in the center, which is like sexual health in a marriage. So now this whole, in a season of kind of this weird capitalist boom, you've gone from crazy snakes to now a city inside a religious city, but a religious city with very secular ambitions, and it's secularizing all the time. Or normalizing its secularity all the time. So, now, where does that imagination provoke? I've never been a born-again Christian, but I'll tell you, like, if those who watched my video know, I want its distraction. But that, I don't know how I can call it, in times of chaos, that primal imagination. If you read those texts, the books, because the side books that are written, it's sci-fi. It's just this intense desire, right, to make the heaven you deserve, right? And the language of it is beautiful, it's epic, and it's going on. Now, all subsequent to that, all that time I was in Nigeria, there was no Nollywood. There was no Nigerian music industry. The Nollywood started in the most crazy way possible. Like some guys, there was old film stock somewhere. There was old film stock somewhere left over from somebody's project with some Igbo trader who said, can you do something with this thing now? To these young English students of some university somewhere. And he paid them money. And someone had a container of videotapes. An Igbo market guy had a container of videotapes and put them inside there, just filled with content. Nigeria just put anything, put it inside, and put it down the distribution pipeline. So they did. And the thing went, and now the last one, what's the one? Who knows Nollywood? The Atlanta one. So there's now a movie. So I'm there on Twitter, and then I'm like, this movie where what's the kind of very cute mixed racy guy, very popular Nigerian actor? No, it starts with an R.
Ramsey Noah.
Ramsey Noah. So Ramsey Noah, there's this very famous comedian who is going to be the head of the movie. So now that basically the Nollywood are now trying to get a black American audience. So they've done a road trip to Atlanta. Comedy, very kind of American comedy style, high production values, right? Huge movie, I think one of the biggest Nollywood movies last year. And paid for with Nigerian money. And they've gone and hired the elite black Hollywood actors to play secondary roles, but also to bring in the black audience in America. So all this shit has been happening while us guys are like getting a nice degree. So then I'm in my hotel room, and this guy comes, small guy like this, and he's like, I'm an actor. You're a writer. What do you write? So I'm like, books. You make money? A little bit. So, I'm an actor, I'm going to become a star. So I'm like, okay. So me, I'm like, you pay your rent out of this thing. It's like, how many movies have you been in? Like 2 movies. He's been in 2 movies. You pay your rent. He's like, yeah, I pay my rent. What movie were you in? The guy was just like a bit part actor. So now what you're having is an industry. That industry, by the way, no corporate owns it, no bodies of corporate money own it. It soaked up all the real money of Nigeria, which is to say, we are traders, not oil money, not Standard Chartered Bank, not I work for Red Cross, none of that shit. The real Nigerian money has now entered to permutate itself inside that sector. And now you have hundreds, maybe thousands of people who pay their rent, earn income, and are able to get their own apartment and visualize themselves in a form of a career. And then from there, the music industry exploded, copying the Nollywood model, but already more sophisticated. What does it do? It took nice middle-class Nigerian children who are taught to speak English properly and have good, decent ambitions for themselves. Like, what are the three Kenyan ones are medicine, law, architecture, electrical engineering, but chemical, actuarial science. Which is to say, working for some foreign company, something. These two little middle-class twins come, they don't know shit about PG. They know some in the middle-class way that you as a middle-class person interact with the people out there, right? You know enough PG. Okay, not if you're from Port, but if you're middle-class, you know what I'm saying? You know that. But now, that ordinary Nigerian, for the first time, his money matters. That ordinary Nigerian spending 200 naira on your CD, his money matters, or her money matters. So much that you defy your parents, your good education, your high moral standards, and learn pidgin. Because if you don't know pidgin, you're going nowhere. Because that's where the market is. But that's where the people are, and they have money to spend. So now I'm sitting in Kenya. This is how many years down this music thing. I put on my DSTV. This DSTV is owned by South Africans, who are the really rich country, right? So South Africans, they have things like, I don't know, technology, pothole-less roads. They're like, so, Canada. The train runs on time. And so they have this digital channel that's gone across Africa. And inside this digital channel, of course, primary market number one is South Africa. It must be, surely. No. They enter Nigeria like this, Nigeria just enter it like this. And eat it. They tell you a joke. Me, I'm just putting on my TV, and then I see this small thing. He looks all of 12 years old. Like, you know these young kids, because they're thin and they look like a question mark, and their jeans are falling down. And I happen to be in Lagos, and the people I'm sitting with are not young people. They're people in their 40s. They are proper serious people. And they're all jumping up and down when this small thing goes and this in this strange language, which I'm given to understand is called Yoruba. So I'm like, so what's his name? Davido. Oh, okay. So, what's Davido? So I'm like, okay, fine. So Davido, I'm waiting for subtitles because this channel is airing to all Africa. Really, we speak English. And sometimes we speak Pidgin. But this guy is speaking this Yoruba thing. And they're not explaining. Like, why are they not explaining? Can they explain for us Kenyans, please? Why they cannot at least explain down there and say, he is now talking about socio-economic circumstances, gender dynamics of the universe. Why are they not saying what he's saying? Because no, the guy is rapping in Yoruba. And then there's a whiskey, there's another one. And then there's, what's the other one? Who sounds Congolese, but he's not Congolese. So I'm like, wait, now. So now you have Yorubas, and now there are 3 channels of music where at least 30% is Yoruba rapping. But Nairobi kids, like they're all over the shit, man. So I'm trying trying to understand what's the marketing behind this thing. It's called Lagos. So now that Lagos is 17 million, and those people down that highway, like that Yoruba speaking group, which is what, 25 million? Inside there, and then the people who half understand because they're in Lagos anyway, because there are a lot of people in Lagos, there's a lot of everybody in Lagos. So what is happening is people are building art or music that people can commit to. Because ultimately, but in the long run, no one's going to commit to English, because English is just kind of like a quarter bargain. It's there, you're not feeling it. They know how to do their calculations, they are very good accountants. They know the real money is in getting that kind of deep commitment. Because now, then, that's weird. This guy having the 72-year-old Yoruba grandmothers were like, oh, Davido. Because he's doing it in Yoruba. Right? So, they already have that one tick. So they're like, so long as that's okay. So now, you Kenyans, just take it. You Zulus, just take it. And you know the weird thing is, you do. Which is to say that even this universalizing idea is not really sensible, because how come you are so easily taking down Olamide? Even me nowadays, I know the songs, I'm like, I'm inside the vibe, right? I'm finding that vibe. So I'm just trying to talk about like the length and depths that something is digging in and finding, I started this thing as a certain trueness, not authentic. Authentic, I don't like that word sometimes because it's trying too much to look for the route that was decided, but a certain trueness of things, right? So to me, I think we are living in a season of enormous transition. Naipaul wrote about India years ago, and saw about 1 million mutinies now, which kind of preset the kind of Indian revolution that's going on now, for its betterness or its worsenesses. Me, I support, at this point, I support the stand up and run in any direction and every direction as much as I can possibly do. Because I can't see the future, but I can see, like, all of a sudden, the beginnings of many possibilities inside our future are available. For me, the question becomes quite utterly that absence is absence. This is a message to Black Canadians or African Canadians, however you want to describe it or complicate it. Like, you can't be ignorant of this. It's not that, okay, you can know the music, but really, you cannot, this time, this not be present inside this thing. There's no expertise you can, and those people who will get heated and transformed as you fried tomatoes and onions and anything comes together. Inside there, you can't come like a fresh tomato wanting game when the stew's being made. Like, you can't. This revolution that's going on, of course, has all its negative sides. Boko Haram being the most visible and obvious one. And whether that battle is there or not. But for me, Boko Haram is as stand-up and we're going as Nollywood. It just is. Because one of the things that's happening is all those very fragile structures, which were designed by a mediocrity, which was called 1885, and which were reinforced by a certain set of mediocrities, which were not necessarily independent. I don't necessarily talk about independence being bad, but when the OAU said in the 60s, the borders must remain the way they are, the colonial borders must remain the way, and defended them, right? Now, what's just happened is, where no attention was given, people have just said, okay, they're off, and they're gone. Me, my own eye doesn't see them coming back. The large parts of Kenya where I feel that may not be the same case. There are going to be those tragedies. What I'll just sum up and say is, me, I'm an IMF child. I don't know how better to put it, but those things called IMF conditionalities, when you were, because Kenya was, us guys were just like, you are Africans, you're so chaotic, you're just always having coups, and I don't know what, us we're like, everything is just cruise control, we are fine, we are fine. Until 1990, we were just like, look at those people. look at these Ugandans. Now you don't have Ugandans. So I was like, look at the Ugandans. Ugandans should not be let into Kenya. Ugandans, my uncles couldn't come into the country. Like, they just bring chaos here. They bring chaos here. This was Kenya's story, right? Now, IMF came and said, no more subsidies for university education. Cash. Me, the people I graduated with in high school, right? We all know, and we don't say, how many women ended up having to be sex workers to pay their fees in the 90s. We've all conveniently forgotten, because we were left just like this, without the subsidy. So, and women took the brunt of the shit like you can't believe, because that subsidy you were getting, it wasn't even a subsidy, it was like a loan, an interest-free loan that you pay back when you're getting work, called Boom at the time, plus your fee subsidy, was what people used to support their families back home. So you had to do that double juggle. Like the things people did, they started changa dens, illegal liquor dens, like insane stuff. And a certain toughness came into our generation, but a certain passivity. People drank themselves to death of my generation, just drank. People spent all their money. People started insane churches, which they still run and are rich. So that's always the best business. All the illusions were stripped from us. The illusions of expectation, the illusions of steadiness will earn the way by that whole process. And for me, so one of my most fundamental things is, I just do not want stasis. I feel like so much of our political language as Africans has been, it's okay, let's just keep the status quo, we don't want violence, we don't want any trouble, peace, Kenya is a peaceful country, I don't want violence, I really don't. I don't like it, I don't want it. But if we have to enter this transitional space, contentious, debating, deciding to leave, the better. But we're not going back. There's the thing of going back, we're not going back. So it's not about a question of stability, it's to start to actually accommodate ourselves as a certain kind of dynamicness within ourselves. So that's the end of this part. I just want to make one tribute before finishing, and then I think I'll move to questions. I want to make a tribute to what I call the natural hair feministas and all their permutations. I want to give really tangible kind of example. It's not because of natural hair or Americana or anything. I'm actually trying to say something very genuine. I had actually had some idea that there were a lot on Twitter, certainly, which is to say in Nairobi, a lot of upper middle class girls or young women, but people in their 18s, 20s, early 20s, who were very independent-minded and who were carrying a certain kind of narrative, which I had heard in America, And I was aware of them, met some friends and whatever, but we had a big 10-year event for Kwani, the publishing house I founded, and we decided ambitiously to rent a warehouse and sell tickets. The warehouse is in town, right downtown Nairobi. It's a Peugeot warehouse, it's gigantic. And the idea is we're going to have this great party. And we're going to bring Chimamanda Adichie and launch Kenyan edition of Americana. And we're going to launch the Yvonne Orr, who's Kenya's most amazing writer. She wrote this book called Dust, which is those two books together there and put them on stage. It rained that day. Now, Nairobi, if people know it, downtown Nairobi, after 5, the traffic jam is a thing, an insanity that must be witnessed. And then it starts raining at 3, and the event is at 6. Now, the day before, I'd had a glimpse of some kind of weird revolution going on because Chimamanda went to speak at a very, very, very important venue, probably the most important literary venue in Kenya, where Achebe spoke, where Hugi spoke, which is at Taifa Hall at Nairobi University. And at first we thought, okay, it's a big deal, but we weren't really registering how big a deal it was until we discovered that the literature department was kicked out by the Vice Chancellor's office, which just came and told them, fuck off. And they put their banners and their logos on the stage at the last minute, and the Kwani logos that removed them and said, this is the Vice Chancellor's. It belongs to the Vice Chancellor. Like, since when? In Kenya? Okay. But me, I'm sitting there now on the side of the stage, and I notice something. That hall is packed. And it's packed. I've been seeing young girls coming. I mean, girls, really, girls, 17, 16, 17. Out of matatus, with their sisters, cousins, mothers, they packed that hall. Not even, some of them are not even students, majority. They just heard through the grapevine. And there was this woman called Chimamanda Adichie who was coming, and they had to be there. They brought their boyfriend so they can explain to them all the things that they need to explain to them that are not in here. It was a rock concert at the University of Nairobi, which has never ever, in its history, ever seen a thing like that. So I was like that. So that's the day before now the launch. I was like, this revolution is real. Fine. So the next day, we are getting all this ready, the rain comes. We are selling tickets online. A ticket is the price of a book, which is 1,300 shillings, which is what, $12, $15? It's not cheap. Nairobi is a poor country. So I get a phone call. We are sitting at the Federal Cultural Center with the Chimamanda and whatever, just waiting. He says, we have to delay the start of this pandemonium. What do you mean? It's rain? No. People were coming across 2 blocks to Federal Cultural Center to steal chairs. People were carrying chairs across. There was a queue going around 3 blocks. It was raining. People were trying to go, the online system crashed. Basically, they did their event with 1,700 people inside. There were 1,700 books sold that night. Right? That's the ones now we know. They were signing until 2 a.m. in the morning. That reading, no one even could hear anything because people were just like, who? Feministas. That thing is real. And it's the most exciting thing. I want to pay just tribute to all those African women. I don't know, the visual artists coming out of Johannesburg now, many of them queer, interesting women, really dynamic and kicking back all over the world. I've seen it at Yale. I went to speak and saw those first year, 23 of them from Kenya, all from Alliance Girls, Ghana Girls, whatever, 2 guys, 3 guys, and just young women. Yeah? Just carving their fate in the world. Like, oh, this is what I decided to do, this is what. I saw it when I went to Alliance Girls High School, which is a public boarding school in Kenya. Now, if people know, in so many of our countries, the public school system has been overwhelmed by people going to private school. I'd gone to the most expensive private school the day before, asked those kids questions. I went to Alliance Girls High School and saw these young women. They bought 114 books with their pocket money. Those girls were like, I read your Kwani when I was in standard 6. That's literary magazine, eh? That's this big. Standard 6, 11, eh? 10, 11 years. I read when I was in standard 6. I like this story, I don't like this story so much. I don't think I'm going to become a writer, I'm going to become a consultant neurologist. But now, I'm just saying, there's something coming out. I think some of you are that cool. Cheers to you. That's what I Any questions? Anything? Hard ones. Yes, sir.
Thank you for presentation. So I would like to know, do you think that the African who are abroad in the US, in Canada, in Europe, do you think that they are missing something? Do you think that they should go back home and build the country?
For one, the thing is, I don't think that there's certain ways that one can have their cakes and eat it. So you have papers already. So, like, the choice, someone was telling me, oh, there's one person, this is at Harvard, by the way, okay, years ago. In fact, her name is Ori Okoro. Who's ever heard of Ori Okoro? The founder of Ushahidi. Have you ever heard of Ori Okoro? Really amazing woman. She had worked for Google, but during the PV presidential violence, they created this app, which was mapping out zones of violence. Really amazing woman. So I met years ago to do a reading there, and she was a grad student. She was like, oh, I don't know about my identity. Am I Kenyan? Am I here? Am I everything? So many just got confused, and I'm like, well, you're in Kenya. You know, like, why? I mean, there's also a certain kind of psychotherapy, sort of Americanized language, which is good, often, but it sometimes refuses to see the obvious. So there was this kind of situation for a long time where you couldn't have, for example, Kenya and have dual citizenship. Now you can. Or you could not. So here, you have a good credit rating. Interest rates here are zero. Zero. Is it Canada also? But in the US, it's zero. If it climbs, it climbs to 3. There's never been such good interest rates ever. So people have been working 15 years and they're like, I don't know if I want to go back home. I don't know if it's so chaotic. I'm like, but you have your passport here. You have a credit rating. You can go and just take a loan, take a chunk of money, go through it in an adventure back home. That adventure, I'm told, gives you enormous returns, which is to say Africa is a continent where you get big returns, but high risk returns. And then if you fail, so you have good credit rating. Take your airline and go back. So now why is it hard? Because here, people make, this is a country that has made its way, leaves its pension there. It already does. So decisions are made through very small, incremental sorts of gambles and calculations, right? My cousin, I have one cousin who is a bus driver, and they're waiting to retire, so they got for like 11 years. His kids already graduated college, right? It's just, I think the fear of living and the fear of risking just becomes its own language. And I don't think it's necessary. I think that some people's fates are here, go to the Canadian Parliament, kick butt and make some advances for Africa or whatever. That's fine. No one has to do the same fate the same way. But you're now in a kind of unusual situation where just enormous possibilities to test your body to the limit and your mind to the limit exist, which don't exist here, where most of you, me I know, this is like, nobody is as well prepared as an ambitious African who knows how to pass exams. There are a few more terrifying forces in the world, which you know. But once you've known how to do that thing, which is to say, to fit into spaces that don't accept you, to maneuver, to angle, to know each expectation, to not slap somebody when you feel like you want to slap somebody, which you must feel often. I must just finish that Somali story. That Somali guy in that gay bar told me, he said, so I'm like, so what does it mean to be a Somali guy? He says, well, I can't be a Norwegian because Norwegians will never call me a Norwegian, even though I was born here. Okay. So then he's like, so what do Somalis do? He says, Somalis at least, they're a bit crazy. So I'm like, what do you mean? So he's like, no, in winter, here, in winter, in these small towns, it gets dark at like 2 in the afternoon. And so in winter, people go crazy. Like, what does it mean go crazy? They go crazy. So it's like, so there's this story, this guy, he's a cousin of mine, he's in this bar. And so he's drinking with his Norwegians in this town, small town. And then because there no one reacts. No one reacts. So he goes from table to table just going. let's fight. So he's like, oh, what happened? I'm just waiting for them. No, they didn't react. He moves from table to table, so he starts screaming, like he's jumping on the table, screaming, right? They don't react. So what they did is they called the police. But what do the police do? You can't even police do this. The police came, they calmed him down, they talked to him, they counseled him, slowly, gently. Then they put him in a police car, then they took him to his house, they put him to bed. Yeah. So I don't have a better answer. But me, I'm like, if one is young, when you're 35, do those things of like, I now want to plan my week, I want to study. This week, my goal and objective is to make sure the lawn is mown properly when you're 35. But there's no better time to take all this plump Canadian credit rating you guys are accumulating and go and burn it on adventures of building and learning new things than now. Because now, if you are going to just do that now, well, you just become a boring guy again. Which is fine. It's not a bad fate at all. And it's the best ice hockey place in the world. Yes.
So, you referred to these naturalista feministas that you're seeing in Africa, and you gave tribute to them, saying that you're seeing something. I was wondering if you could speculate on what you think is really happening. Like, do you think this is a moment happening in Africa, and do you think it represents a changing of the tides? Like, are African women doing something, and is the whole movement of feminism and natural hair a sign of something to come?
Okay, so first let me say, without trying to trivialize the natural hair thing is important, but I think that there are things behind. I think there's a growing language of African feminism going on in different locales, and that this is just a count on something very fundamental. To me, I think that the more visible zones I know is South Africa and Kenya, and not for a bad reason, but Nairobi's public culture has always been, because Nairobi doesn't belong to anyone. I mean, for those who don't know, it's no one's village. Or at least if it was, the Igbo people, the white people, decided it isn't. And so it is so not, it just isn't. So Nairobi people come from all over Kenya with some other identity, but one of the reasons I can be gay in Nairobi is because no, Kenya is a relatively homophobic country and has all these laws and blah blah blah. Is that the individualism? Me, I thought I'd go out to clubs and wear who could be bothered? A policeman wanted a selfie. In Nairobi, that happens, right? In a certain very fundamental way, and I don't think that's ever going to change. So, in a sense, for a long time, I think since the 90s, in fact, I can date Nairobi's sort of explosion of independent women to the 90s in the hang scene, when women started partying to rock. What used to happen is, your imagination, you're R&B. So what happened, it used to be that you're a girl, you sit at home, and then you're like, do you know someone? Do you know someone in the car? So you're in high school, right? And so then you all know someone, and so okay, someone. And then someone has a car, so these are the not mobiles. You call that number at his office, and then he's going to come pick you up, and then on your street light when your parents are asleep, you enter his car. But now if you enter his car, you're in the hands and his friends, okay? Because now you have to do everything they say. You go to the club, and so it's, okay, it was you. So you're not with him, and then now you're with him, and then you're with him, and you're with him. So then you all go and slow down. So all of you want to slow down to someone else, because you really want to see your boyfriends from somewhere else. But you can't, because and of course, the shit that goes down in terms of how you're treated. after IMF conditionalities, women went to march. See now, you're like, okay, wait, no one has money, nobody has money, and why the fuck are we doing this? So this is sort of an independent-minded, oh, we're going as a group of girls, and we raise our own money, we buy our own booze as a group, and we dance, and then we like that guy, we're going with that guy. We like that guy, we're going with that guy, and it was rock. So it was like rock nights. That's when people started doing this thing. So then it had been evolving. I think during that IMF time, that sort of kind of independent-mindedness started happening. Your parents didn't have that money to keep you under the armpit for a long time. You had to start work early. Many successful women started off middle class, women started off as waitresses, which had never happened before. So a certain hustle had created a certain kind of independent-mindedness. So now, it's like several generations down, that thing is already set. Already, banks in Kenya have these different accounts, but they'll tell you their clientele. Property owning, right now, in Kenya, the biggest boom is shamas, is women's groups. Groups of women who save money together and buy properties together. And that generation of women in their late 20s, early 30s, are doing extremely well. There's an anecdote I was told by a taxi driver. So he was like, so there's a certain kind of very conservative, high-achieving Kenyan women. They're usually in banking. They usually like very small rural schools. They are very, very Christian. They believe in marriage and no boyfriend and passing exams. Quite often they went to gun girls or precious blood. Okay. So he's like, he had gone to this nightclub in Karen with a client the day before, and she was like very safe that they had taken her before, and she never takes her car, and she doesn't have a boyfriend and everything else. And she was now telling him, she was drunk, and she was telling him, oh, she's decided to have a baby, does he want to have a baby with him? So she wanted him to come upstairs. And so he starts to freak out. He's like, no, me, I can't. If she was one of the wild ones, like just say, the normal Karen girls, I would go, that's not a problem. But this one is going to be a problem. Because now what's starting to happen is, you are getting this sort of independent-mindedness despite yourself. You're like, no men qualify. Then you join a Chiama group and it's only the girlfriends, and you all try to climb up banking together. You're very, very conservative. You have plans, you have needs, no question. But you mysteriously find yourself expecting a baby at 28. Just somehow. You slipped. And you're kind of happy because you've already made a nest for the husband and the baby, but you sort of stop thinking about the husband a while ago, but you have a nice little flat in Kileleshwa. And you're like, okay, this is not so bad. And you tell your parents, they're surprisingly relieved because they've been wondering what's going on. And so it just works out. So, there are very many versions of that narrative. Joburg, with South Africa, the feminist movement in the struggle was so strong that what you're seeing is the growing up of the children of the women's movement in South Africa. And they had a movement like no country in Africa in scale, breadth, history. Winnie Mandela, people's mothers were part of the women's movement. It was part of the labor movement. So, to me, that independent-mindedness, in my book I talk about how, like overnight, all black women were lesbians. Really kind of, if you went to a nightclub in South Africa, 1995, a black club, women were so tired of guys' shit in college campuses, where rape stats were insane. They started going out in groups and got dreadlocks, and they just keep going around and saying, lesbian. And so, that narrative of self-protection or self-independence happened. So it's different things. I think you could also call it, there's a whole other crisis going on in SA because guys weren't graduating from college, especially black colleges, right? The number of women who were graduating college at UNITRA, where I was it's like 70%, right? They finished their degrees. So partly the opportunities in post-apartheid South Africa for women, they're like the building of a new middle class that are women, who is far more than men, and partly because the race issues in South Africa are very similar to the race issues in America, in the sense of the marginalization of the guy, all the same constructions you see here are very similar to the constructions you see in South Africa, right? Oh, that is your question or something. Okay, sorry.
I just wanted to know what your view was on Afropolitanism, in which, like, like this mediocrity you've been talking about is branded and it's like even more institutionalized. What do you think of it? And also, do you consider yourself an Africanist? And if yes, why is that important?
Okay, so me, my simple desires are I believe in intense, far more intense and localized self-determinations, right? And a larger infrastructural and political platforms on the continent. And in that sense, yes, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm not a Kenyanist. I find Kenyan patriotism. I don't have. I don't not love it. I would, my homies, but I don't have that. And then, so now the Afropolitan thing. Now, first, this whole, I got into this debate, some by mistake somehow, so, because I was talking about something else entitled the thing, Pan-Africanist, not an Afropolitan. But they didn't record the talk, they had promised to record the talk, and then at the time I was trying to talk about building a Pan-African publishing house, which is what I'm planning to do, or I'm in the middle of doing. And I was trying to talk about the issues around what that means when you're talking, like we're saying, not just about a marketplace. And am I right? It's not so much when I talk about music and marketplace, so making Yoruba music and market, is that essentiality of making our own things, right? And on recognizing all the very deep and importance of realities that exist and continue to be made, right? And how those are so important. And when I talk about how I don't think Toronto is diverse, I really don't. I don't, it's not really to knock it. It's just where we're coming from, the different platforms that have different scale size. Now, when you're like El Molo, of which there are 114 people, then you're talking to Yoruba, what's Yoruba? 30 million people. What is it? Is it a civilization? Is it a nation state? How many people are inside there? Now Yorubas say, which are the tribes? Are there tribes? Which one? But Ibadan and this one is different. It's that's a certain kind of genuine complexity, right? That many Africans deal with all the time, and being able to digest the complexities of people in very, very, very complex ways. I used to take a test out of my eye. My city is Nairobi. And I know Nairobi really well. I know Nairobi as well as someone could know Nairobi. But I can't know it. So I used to say this very peculiar thing is that when I went to London for the first time, this test, I used to use in creative writing, like what do you think those people on that table are talking about, or what do they do? Like, I'll be accurate. Like, if I come to Toronto and I start to try and project, I'm not be what they are, what they do. Are they coming from a fight? Is it a lovers? Is it a date? You can't say. Now, I look out my window. There are people I can't explain. I just cannot explain. And no one can explain. Like, even an instant, like, okay, that one, he just is. It's closed, but there's a place that is called Beach Bar in Lagos. And we used to go there it was an annual ritual where we did this workshop. There are people on that beach, maybe 100,000, who live on the beach. That's where they sleep. They're not allowed to have permanent housing, but they just live there on the beach. So to go there, now you need someone who knows the place and knows someone, but you pay. So you pay to go in, you pay the community, and then you pay for security, then you pay for a table, chairs, then chicken, fried fish, everything you pay. Then you sit by the beach and you enjoy the whole night. So at about 4 in the morning, they're drunk. They're just these ghosts who come, like I don't know, like 1,000. wearing white to pray some traditional prayer, and they go into the water. And then they just go. Diversity. Then, at 5:36, kids come out of nowhere, the sun comes out in school uniforms. Then they're off like this. Now, now, where do we start to discuss this other Afropolitanism inside that? Where now do we start? Just like, I mean, so me, I like to wear Afropolitan clothes that can, take nice, that tailor in Ghana, tailor in Lagos, tailor in Senegal. As a commodity buyer, I put my credit card and my cash to buy Afropolitan products. Lots. I love them. But I'll be dead before you see me calling myself an Afropolitan. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you mentioned a lot of things that stood out to me. But one thing you said, and then lots of things back there, how you see Nollywood as being as much of a force as Boko Haram. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what if our artists were essentially our writers? How do we get them to buy out of the Afropolitan and the dream that they have sold us of self-hate to actually call attention to what's happening in your own country, like to your brothers and sisters, like, in Boko Haram, I also don't know how long you were in Nigeria. So how long you were in Nigeria?
I go every year, but I know Lagos well. I don't know Abuja. Had nice adventures in Port Harcourt. Abeokuta I know very well. Now, okay, so first I think that there's a crisis
happening. And
where
do you see examples of our writers, authors, and activists doing that?
Yes.
Yeah. And how do we take from those examples?
Right. Okay, so the thing I've been working on is called Nani, and we're trying to get people with money, African money, to invest in a certain kind of like writing Nollywood. I'm putting a very complicated idea, or at least what I mean a complicated idea very simply. Like, to actually start to have writers, which is to say, we have writers but don't yet have writers. I don't know how, for our generation, we don't yet have. We do, no, we have Chimamanda, no, I'm not sure what I'm saying. She can't buy her house with the money she makes in Nigeria. You understand? That P Square can buy this house.
That's what I'm saying. How do we transfer P Square out of that industry, that capitalism, which is the neoliberalism, that's trapping people want to write our stories?
No, thank God for P Square and all of them with their neoliberal capitalism, because they create, for lack of a better thing now, because the other future, it's already sitting inside us, but we don't have money to pay for it yet. You just say, just for bread and butter, yes? Well, Nigeria right now has thousands of extremely talented writers and no economic model that can sustain them. Even if you don't have to have writers who necessarily you can do your accounting and write, that's fine. But still, if everybody has to go to kindergarten and finish high school reading, there must be an affiliated industry where just the teenage girls of Nigeria have all this nice genre trash. And then make the romance genre trash, kick-ass feminista romance genre trash. But that Niger girl needs 1,000 of them so that she can eat them morning, noon, and night. For her own pleasure, not for school, not for necessarily edification. And when you have those books, all publishing works the same way. All these people published by HarperCollins, Chimamanda, the person who's paying for Chimamanda and Binyavanga is the Chico Mills and Boone and Sci-Fi. Those same publishers own each other, right? They make all that cash. It's just like Hollywood. Hollywood doesn't make its own money. The money is made by porn. Then when you make all this cash there on West Side LA with the porn, I'm not saying you want to make porn, I'm just saying, those $300 million Because now you want to claim your name, you take it across to the other side of Hollywood and you put it in, big blockbuster movie to now become legit, right? But so English-speaking Africa has to build a popular books industry. We just have to. And me, that's what I'm back home doing. I'm going to build it. I'm going to be, it's going to be built, right? It's going to have sci-fi, it's going to have whatever, it will be chaotic and whatever, but it's going to have content from here up to your nose, and we won't be able to count the number of titles that are there. So for me, for now, of course, do you know, the truth is all the writers I know really actively involve themselves in whatever useful politics there are, in petitions and whatever. But at this point, we don't have a voice. There's a really great talk, and I can circulate among you, by Ozzy. You know, she used to be a minister, and then she's a woman of Chibok Girls, ex-minister in Nigeria. Ozzy Nigerian, no. Okay, anyway, she spoke and she said, you see, the music industry now can lobby. If they say we don't like something, the Nigerian politicians have to sit down and answer. The writers can't. At some point, you have to have not just money, you have to have scale behind you. You also have to have Nigerians behind you, right? So I think that that's important, so that it's not solitary individual voices. When all these petitions come, I get them all the time on email, sign up, and then there's 100 writers. They're all there, they all sign up, but then on one basis, which Nigerian even knows who you are? Where are the bookshelves? What other books do they share? In Abeokuta, where Shoyinka comes from, the main hotel has a bookstore right there. It doesn't sell Shoyinka's books. And you can't, it's not now the making of a moral force. At some point, you have to create a domestic industry of genre books. That's the only answer I can give. Yes?
Hi, thank you so much for coming. You're the best guest speaker we've ever had.
Blushy.
I have a two-part question. The first part is, what was the reaction when you sent the letter to the World Economic Forum declining the Young Leader Award, the letter to Binyavanga? And the second is, what is the most interesting question you've ever been asked, and what's the answer?
The first one is easier. I'm trying to remember. First, I thought that it was a 419 letter. Because when they said Binyavanga, I'm like, but really. After a few weeks, because what happened is I emailed my response to them and emailed a few friends. I didn't put it up online. And I hadn't intended to. I just emailed a friend of mine called a child. We concocted the letter together just for mischief. I emailed her and emailed like 10 of my friends and forgot about it. But then people sent it to other people, and then someone put it up online. So they got rid of it some weeks later. Someone called me and said, oh, we are sorry. It's the first time we've done this, I don't know, interns or fellows, world fellow things, and there are some processes that we didn't follow, like consulting people before announcing it to the public, because they announced it. Like they announced it before I could say yes or no. That was my first initial act. I'm like, what the fuck? Are you people mad? And then, so we'd like to invite you next time to come. But I'm like, but you should read my letter. Where I was like, but I can't come for such a thing. Why would I want to come for such a thing? That's not my job description. So, so I haven't met Binyavanga. Kind of like to, but not in those circumstances. But the most interesting question. Okay, my niece Shiro, when she was young, I used to babysit her a lot. And she would be like, so, Uncle Ken, why are you doing that? Because it's, that's what I'm feeling. I mean, no, but you crossed your fingers. Yeah. Is that what you mean? Yes. But Uncle Ken, why? I'm like, because I'm crossing my fingers. Ken, why? Because you keep irritating me. Oh, okay. But why? Yeah, that was I don't know what it is, but when kids are like 2, between 2 and 3, hey, yeah, that thing comes up a lot. Any questions? Yes, ma'am?
Just 2 words. Diabolic corruption. I'm thinking, what do you feel about it? What do you feel about, like, if you think about Africa and you think about how we're doing? I'm from Bungoma.
Ah, nice.
and I'm just thinking that we have so much going on for us, but at the same time, corruption. So what do you say about that?
You know, like, I know I shouldn't be happy because it's got practical implications on now, but when the governors of the new 47 counties, within 3 months, when you have TNA, which is dominant, have all rebelled against the central government and sent like double or whatever the allocations to the counties. That, to me, gives the biggest signal of the possibility of a new direction. Because that thing is just saying, oh, you know, because we can, we shall. Like, because we can say we want more money out of the central government, and the government will say no, and we can unite as 20 governors and take it anyway, or referendum, or just because. Because why? Because we shall, because we can. So there's a certain sense that, for me, that hopes that Bungoma takes 35, 60, 72, then 91. Then we come to a more convenient arrangement, as I said, with more intense localness and larger political platform. I don't mean larger in just terms of scale, but a more kind of realistic, maybe I don't like EU-ish, but you know, like somewhere where you have the convenience of knowing you have to have common infrastructures and common whatever, but that there's a certain fate that's kind of predetermined. There's simply no way to... You just try to imagine the problem of creating, like a human being, the first thing you are, more than a stomach hands, and already that tells you why even the word corruption is wrong. When you talk to Kenyans, they keep thinking a human being is a machine. They're like, oh, Nini, politics of the belly, say, oh, it's not practical, da-da-da-da. All this relentless practicalness is partly because the national space does not have metaphysics. It just doesn't. And me, I think that a human person or human community is at first has a certain common metaphysics. It's not tribe, it's far more than that. It's just that when you see yourself, there's all this complicated, semi-spiritual, semi-fundamental sense of yourself in the world, of yourself as a thing, connected to stars and connected to earth, and that is very, very deep and very human and very essential. So I just feel like all this nation-making process, which came from an idea in the 50s, which was new to the world, which was saying, you can take these borders made by somebody randomly with a piece of paper during Berlin conference, and then you make those states. And then now those states are frozen like that, we must create a thing called development. So that we take those states and then we make them nations, something like this, right? Those borders. But the borders, you can't move them. So now you don't move the borders. So stay the borders. Just stay there. Then ask us are going to bring 8 to then fill it up. So it's like instant soup. So we'll find out, we'll do research on the ingredients, on how you make a nation state, like how Britain was made, which took 1,000 years, and how many, 300 federal wars, and World War I, World War II, and then to get there. So we'll rush that thing up from 1950, took inputs, outputs, start a university program at McGill, Leeds, Harvard, send bright young people from Nigeria, Kenya, to learn those ingredients. So then you have development plan number 1. And the first one used to be, they used to say, the first one was, African nations will develop each sector equivalently, same time. That's why, if you're Kenyan, people say, like, shit used to work in the 70s. Like, because they put money, education, health, because that was what the development ideology of the time was. Then they're like, that shit isn't working. It's not working like that. Then they were like, put one in one direction and then exacerbate one direction. Then it was like, expand the middle classes. Now this is the new one of expanding the middle classes. So now, in Kenya, you just look like these Amol drops. I don't know, sometimes, when you're turning, this is my city. When you turn past Thika Road Mall, I was here last week. The thing dropped from the sky, right? 3 days ago, I went to see a housing estate in Nairobi where the guy is selling wooden log cabins from Norway. I'm telling you this, it's true. And they are sold. They are finished, right? He bought 10 acres of land in Lokabete, very expensive, one of the most expensive parts of Nairobi. And so he met up with these Norwegians who make, to order log